All right, welcome back. Lesson 7 for video 2. So we're going to start with the formal introduction of this geometric mean idea, right? So this is the altitude rule. Again, I don't need you to memorize this, but I will explain it to you. So it says the length of the altitude, so that's this guy, so CD, the length of the altitude is going to be the geometric mean between the segments of the hypotenuse. So understand that the hypotenuse we're talking about here is AB in the big triangle. So your two segments are AD and DB, right? So it's saying that the geometric mean, which is CD, between AD and DB, right? And again, I'm going to emphasize just use similarity, right? Just understand that the small triangle and the medium triangle are similar, so use proportional sides to get the proportion set up. Okay, so here we go. It says, what is RT? Okay, so this one does not involve UT. So the theorem I just used was referring to example 3. So I apologize for stopping the video a little short, right? We're not going to use UT here, okay? So we have to find out what RT is, this one. So in this problem, right, because we're not using UT, we're not going to use the two smaller triangles. We're going to use here the medium triangle and then also the big triangle, okay? All right. And again, the reason is because of RT. RT is a shared side between the medium triangle and the big triangle, right? So understand that idea. Okay. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my similarity statement first. So I'm going to use the medium triangle first. I'm going to go RTU because that's alphabetic order. Okay, U is my right angle. So in the big triangle, T is the right angle. So where I put U here, T has to go last. And then the medium triangle and the big triangle share R. So R is going to go in the same spot. So R's first. So R's first. And now the third letter in the big triangle is going to be S. There's my similarity statement corresponding order. Okay, so now I want to find RT. RT is in both triangles. It's here, and it's also, let me change it to blue. It's here, and it's also here. So RT in the medium triangle is corresponding to RS in the big triangle. And then RS. And then RT in the big triangle, which I'll put down here, corresponds to RU in the medium triangle. So there is my proportion. Okay, RT is my unknown, so it's going to be X. RS is the entire length of that hypotenuse. That is going to be 9.6 plus 5.4. That's a length of 15. What a nice number that is. Okay, and that's going to equal RU. RU is 9.6 over RT, which is my X again. We're going to cross multiply. Let me change it to purple. So again, we're going to get X times X is X squared. 15 times 9.6 is a nice even 144. And 144 is a perfect square. So when you take the square root, X is 12. So the length of RT is just 12 here. So in this case, because we used RT twice, RT would have been the geometric mean if I try to connect it to this geometric mean idea. And RT is a leg of the big triangle. So the next theorem I'm going to introduce is going to be the geometric mean involving the leg of the big right triangle. So now it says the altitude of the hypotenuse of a right triangle divides the hypotenuse. So the length of a given leg, so the length of a leg is going to be the geometric mean between the length of the hypotenuse and the segment of the hypotenuse adjacent. So this is where this gets like really wordy, right? Adjacent to the leg. So in this case, let's take a look at this one right here. Okay, so we're going to say AC is the leg that's given to us. So that's the geometric mean. That's why it's twice. It's going to be the geometric mean between the hypotenuse, which is AB, and the segment of the hypotenuse closest to or adjacent to that leg, which would be AD. That's why AD is here. And again, you can do the same thing for this one and the other side. Again, I'm going to just use similarity, right? Just create your similarity statement between the two triangles and set up your proportion. And again, in this case, we would have used the small triangle and then the big triangle. So for the altitude one, it includes the small and medium triangles. But for this leg one, you have to use the big triangle and then one of the smaller triangles. Okay, so let's do 2 more questions and we're done. All right, so what is the value of x? Okay, so if we look here, x is part of the hypotenuse. 6 is the altitude that we know. So I believe I'm going to use the small and the medium triangle to find 6. And I'm going to ignore y and z, right? They don't matter. Why use multiple variables? So here is what we're going to do. We are going to create our expression. Now this is tough because it doesn't give us letters. So I'm going to do this. A, B, C, and D. So if I use the 2 smaller triangles, I know that A and B are not the same. So if I use the medium triangle first, right? So triangle A, C, D will be similar to A. I'm not going to start with A, right? D is the right angle in both triangles, so D will go last. A and B can't correspond, so if A went first, it's going to go second. And then C is going to correspond to the third letter, which would be, A is going to correspond to the third letter, which would be C. So A, C, D, and C, B, D, right? Just as long as the A and B aren't lined up because they're not congruent. And again, I know C and D are not necessarily in the same spot. D is, of course, because it's the right angle. So that's the similarity statement. So I'm going to use AD and BD, right? And then CD will probably be used twice. So it's however you want to fill this out. I'm going to go with AD first. So AD over. So AD is this side, corresponds to CD in that triangle. And then I also need to use BD, which is in the second triangle. So it goes in the bottom, and that corresponds to CD in the first triangle. Okay, now I'm going to fill in what I know. So AD is x plus 5. CD is 6. CD is 6, and BD is x. And now I'm going to cross multiply. And now I'm going to put this x plus 5 in parentheses. This is a binomial, right? So we're going to put x times x plus 5 equals, and 6 times 6 is 36. So this is going to end up being a little bit more complicated than our previous problems, because when we multiply, we have to distribute the x. This becomes x squared plus 5x equals 36. It's this 5x that's going to kind of throw everything for a loop. So this is actually going to be called a quadratic, right? This is a quadratic. It has the form of ax squared plus bx, and we need to make it say plus c equals 0. We need this side to say equals 0. So I'm going to subtract 36 on both sides to get x squared plus 5x minus 36 equals 0. And now this is an Algebra 1 skill you learned last year. Again, I can't reteach you everything, so you have to go look for a video. But here's my best. So we're going to factor this. And when we factor a quadratic, right, we're looking for typically 2 numbers that multiply to get your c. So 2 numbers, they usually call them m and n, that multiply to get c, but then those 2 numbers m and then n that add to get b, right? That's the idea. Okay, and again, notice that we have no number in front of x squared, so that makes this simpler, right? So if you look at your number, your c value is a negative 36. So we need 2 numbers that are going to multiply to get negative 36, but then add to get 5. Well, if it's a negative 36, we know that it has to be 1 positive, 1 negative. All right. So if you are good with numbers, you might know the 2 numbers right now. But if you're not, right, we just simply start with 1 and 36, right, and we subtract them. That's not 5. Or we're going to subtract them because one's positive, one's negative. That's not 5. Then we go 2 and 18. That's 16. No. 3 and 12. That's 9. No. 4 and 9. Now when you subtract 4 and 9, you do get 5. Now you need to get a positive 5. So which one has to be negative, which one has to be positive? Well, the 4 must be negative and the 9 positive. If that is the case, negative 4 plus 9 is positive 5. These are going to be the two numbers that go in our binomials. So now watch this, right? So I'm going to put a big circle around this. So now what you do is in the first parenthesis you put x, in the second parenthesis you put x, and you put the minus 4 in one of the parentheses and the plus 9 in the other. Now again, if you were to multiply these two binomials back out, you would get this quadratic. But now to solve for x, we're going to set each of these equal to 0. And we're going to get x by itself by adding 4 and subtracting 9. So x equals 4 and x equals negative 9. Now, if we were to plug these back into the picture, you cannot plug in negative 9 back in here because that would be a negative length. So the negative 9 cannot be an answer. So the value of x here is going to be 4. So as we get further along in this textbook, they are going to start introducing more and more quadratics, just to get you ready for Algebra 2 again. Okay? And again, if factoring is difficult for you, you might want to look at some YouTube videos on how to factor. Okay. All right. Last but not least, so I know that was kind of a long problem. Sorry about that. Okay. So it says Zhang is constructing a 4-foot-high loading ramp. The length of the back of the base must be 12.8 feet. How long must the entire base be? Okay, so this 4 feet is going to be your altitude. Okay, now it says the length of the back of the base must be 12.8. So I believe that this is where it says back, right? So it says back, that's 12.8. And they want to know how long must the entire base be? So our real question is this, right? But in order to find that, all we need to know is how long the front is. We need to find x. Okay, now again, they gave you the triangles, all right? We need to find x because we're using the altitude. We're going to use the medium triangle and the small triangle. So the medium triangle, it is ABC. C is the right angle. Is going to be similar to. Okay, so in the small triangle, I know C has to go in the same spot because it's the right angle. And I know that B and D cannot correspond. So where B is second. D cannot go there. So D has to go there, and the third letter is A. There's my correspondence, right? Or there's my similarity statement. So now, I want to find the front. That's CD. So CD over, well, CD is here. CD over CA equals, and now I have to use CA again. CA is in the smaller triangle. Right? Now I did put CD on top, right? So this is kind of confusing, right? I put CD on top, so this CA is going to go on top. And then that corresponds to BC or CB, which goes on bottom. But again, understand that the altitude must be in the same space because it's going to be the geometric mean this time. All right, so CD is what I'm looking for, x, CA is 4, CA is 4, and CB is 12.8. Cross multiply 12.8, x equals 16, and divide by 12.8. And when you divide by 12.8, you get 1.25, and I believe that is nice and even. Yep. So now, that is this. So to find the length of the base, we're going to take 12.8 and add 1.25, right? And when you do that, your length of your base is 14.05, and that's in feet. Okay, so again, get good with the similarity so you can create your proportion and plug in your numbers. All right, thanks for watching. Good luck with this. This can be a tricky section, so if you are confused, you're not alone. All right, just ask questions if you have them.